My name is Claire, and I'm a 20-year-old detransitioner from Texas. And I believe that what happened to me is part of the largest medical scandal in American history. I was a tomboyish kid who went through an early puberty at just 8 years old, which made me uncomfortable with my body. When I was 11, I was sexually assaulted by a classmate. I was also attracted to girls. All of these things created a perfect storm. The feelings that I had about my assault and about my body were misinterpreted by therapists and people online as gender dysphoria. By 12, I came out as transgender. My parents hesitated to immediately affirm my new identity as they found research showing that about 80% of kids with gender dysphoria become comfortable with their birth sex if allowed to grow up naturally. That's what they hoped for me. But I was convinced that this was my truth. They took me to a therapist who made them feel like terrible parents. This therapist told them in no uncertain terms that they were harming me by not immediately affirming that I was born in the wrong body and had a male spirit trapped somewhere inside me. My parents and I were directly told that it was transition or die. Those were my only two options. I was promised that my eating disorder, suicidal thoughts, and trauma would all just disappear if I changed my body. They convinced me that hormones and surgery would fix all of my very real problems. What I actually needed were strong female role models who defied gender stereotypes while still being comfortable as a woman. I didn't have that. I lived in a conservative Texas town where all of the women that I knew were traditional housewives and teachers. As far as gender stereotypes went, I essentially grew up in the 1960s, even though it was the 2010s. By my 15th birthday, I had been on testosterone for nearly a year and had a double mastectomy. I had G-cup breasts when I was 14. They removed 10 pounds of tissue from me during the summer between my 8th and 9th grade years, when I only weighed 120 to begin with. I had real medical problems caused by my early development. A breast reduction might have helped with those issues. I remember telling people before my surgery that if I had been born with smaller breasts that could effectively be bound down, I wouldn't have even wanted the mastectomy. I told my therapist that, but she never saw that as a red flag or suggested a reduction as a less invasive alternative. That option wasn't even on my radar. At 16, I learned what a breast reduction was after gossip spread around my school when a girl on the volleyball team had gotten one. That's when I realized that that's what I had wanted, not a radical mastectomy. That's when I first had the inkling that I had made a mistake. It was like a light bulb moment, where the pieces finally started falling into place. I stopped taking testosterone when I was 16 and a half. I started going by a different name at 17, but still identified as non-binary. I didn't fully accept that I was a woman again until around a year later. It takes time to break free from that mindset. My parents didn't know that I was detransitioning until I told them I wanted a breast reconstruction surgery. They had suspicions, since I was off of testosterone and dressing more feminine, but they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. When I first detransitioned, I was still influenced by transgender ideology. It was easier to believe that medical transition was legitimate healthcare and I was just an exception. It was easier to blame myself than to face the reality of what had happened. I still believed that there were kids who needed these interventions. But then, more research came out showing that there's actually very little evidence supporting these treatments. Everything I believed came crashing down. I had to face these realizations many times before I could truly accept them. What began to open my eyes were the stories from other detransitioned women. Our experiences are all so similar it's uncanny, like we're all being made in the same factory. Every time I meet another detransitioned woman, we instantly connect because we already know so much about each other's stories. That's when I realized that it can't be all my fault if all of these other people went through the exact same thing. Someone should have noticed that there was a pattern. The final breaking point came when I was banned from an online detransition support group just for sharing the Mayo Clinic's list of health risks from hormone therapy. The moderators weren't even detransitioners. They were all trans-identified people controlling our conversations. What I wish I could tell girls caught in this today is that feeling uncomfortable with society's expectations of women doesn't mean that you're not a woman. Those expectations aren't comfortable by design. Being a woman in this world isn't supposed to feel easy. Let's change the world, not our bodies.